This is it, NFL fans, waiting for those guys to get out of there and get in the draft. This is where you find the elite of the elite. We're going to do a three-man breakdown. What's come before with Georgia versus Alabama and what you're going to see this time. Welcome to Locked On NFL Draft.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Show. I'm your host, former NFL and NFL defensive back Eric Crocker, and of course, joined by my guys, Ryan Tracy, my co-host, and also our co-host on these days, Rob Rain. We are going to talk about the national championship game, a rematch from the SEC championship game, a game that was very interesting. And the way it came out like, is Alabama going to get steamrolled? And then they did the steamrolling. As you guys probably remember, Alabama beat down Georgia 41-24, a game that was kind of a tale of two halves. So, Rob, I want to get to you first. What's one thing that really jumped out to you in that game that made it kind of go that way?
Well, as you said, Eric, the Georgia Bulldogs jumped out to a 10-zip lead. And we were thinking, wow, hey, this is the game that Kirby Smart, one of those assistant coaches that previously had worked under Nick Saban, they're finally going to be an example of the student beating the teacher. And then, of course, the Alabama Crimson Tide changed the tide and wound up winning that game. To me, a huge part of why that, the Georgia lost the game is the fact that this defense that we had bandied about as, perhaps the best in all of college football, maybe historically among the best in college football, didn't get a single sack in on the Heisman Trophy winner, Bryce Young. And so, it's not rocket science, gentlemen. If you don't get pressure on the best quarterback in college football, then he's going to eat you alive. And that's exactly what he did, basically starting from the second quarter on.
Well, Ryan, when you look at this game and you'd assume when a team gets steamrolled like that, oh man, like Alabama, they just had the run game going. But Brian Robinson, guy who has really shown out, he had the game of his life just a week ago, taking on Cincinnati, 16 carry, 55 yards, 3.4 yards per carry against Georgia Bulldogs. Is that something that you are expecting? And how do you think maybe Alabama tries to change up things to have a little bit more success on the ground in this game coming up, especially against that type of front that Georgia has?
Don't underestimate them dogs. That's all I'm telling you. You got to mix it up. I think that they have some options with Robinson to try to get him going a little bit more. I think that the immediacy of a championship game, I think, will bring out the best in Robinson as well. At the end of the day, I think that that's not what is going to be most productive for you when you talk about all the players in the front seven on the Georgia side. Yes, you're going to have some cracks that I think you can manufacture in there, but I don't think that that's where the bread and butter is going to come from. There is a formula that you just built a few weeks ago that you're going to have to follow, but there is something particularly for Robinson that I think if you're going to work to the right-hand side of your offensive formation, I think you might have a little bit more trouble. I'm just going to put it that way. If it's me, I'm working to the left-hand side, and we'll see where he makes his yards.
There also was, Jameson Williams. He's a guy that really went off in that game. 7 receptions for 184 yards, 2 touchdowns. He went crazy, and that was part of really that explosion in the second quarter that helped Alabama really kind of take control of that game. And he did a lot of that work with Mechie out there. Mechie, he won't be playing this weekend. So we're talking about Mechie, who went down with an injury, suffered a torn ACL, I believe it was. That's not ideal. Do you think not having Mechie out there at his disposal, for Bryce Young and really to help Jameson Williams as well, do you think that's something that hurt them? Because it didn't hurt them against Cincinnati when you thought it might with the 2 corners that they have and really just the secondary in general.
Yeah, to me, I think that the loss of John Mechie is a significant one. Mechie is not the same caliber of athlete, of course, that Jamison Williams was, and what a spectacular performance that Jamison Williams has had all season long, but especially here in the playoffs. Going up against Cincinnati, he was very good. going up against Georgia in the SEC championship, he was damn near dominant. I mean, he just took that football game over. We saw some of the straight line explosiveness, the acceleration that may wind up making Jamison Williams the number one receiver off the board. Just because, I mean, just a different level of speed that he presents. But again, without John Mechie there, who was Alabama's leading receiver this year, it wasn't Williams in terms of catches. Then I think that absolutely has to play a role. Now, Slade Bolden, the other receiver, quote unquote, other receiver for Alabama, who really stepped up with some big clutch catches against Cincinnati, good football player. But at the same time, again, he is not the big imposing athlete. He is not the, quite as trusted, I don't think, just yet for Young as, again, as Mechie is. So I think that it has to have a significant impact. I would not be surprised at all if Georgia tries to move their top cornerback, Darion Kendrick, for previously at Clemson, to match up with Jamison Williams a little bit more one-on-one and see if they can at least slow him down. It's Alabama, of course. They've got 5-star recruits just waiting on the bench for this kind of opportunity. But at the same time, to me, that'd be the number one thing that Kirby Smart and the Georgia defense has to try and do is slow down Alabama's number one target, and that's clearly Jamison Williams.
Right, and there was another guy that really kind of went off in this game. And again, we're just kind of previewing the last game. Brock Bowers, the freshman out. He is a freshman, and Brock Bowers. And I'm from California. So I like, okay, get off. He's a true freshman, but he's like 20 years old. So he's kind of a little old for a true freshman, but 10 catches, 139 yards. I'm definitely interested to see, what type of plan does Nick Saban have for guys like that? And we're going to get into that next when we come back from this break. All right, y'all, it's a new year. So you know what that means. New year, new me, New Year's resolution. And if yours is about getting fit and eating healthier, make sure you include a Built Bar into your plan. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar and maybe even better than a candy bar. Built Bar, it makes it easy to stick to your New Year's resolutions because it tastes so good and you'll want to eat it. Unlike other protein bars, which are chalky and waxy or taste like a chemical pill. All right. Now, you want to eat healthy, but it gets boring. And we all know that. By like week 3, you might start thinking, this just is not worth it. Where's my chocolate? Well, if you want chocolate, Built Bar has that, and it's covered in 100% real chocolate. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually have around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs, and even more just empty calories. Here's an idea for your new year. Go to all your secret stashes at home, in your pantries, in your desk, in your car, in your office, everywhere, and throw out all this sugary candy that has all these calorie-filled treats, all that. Throw it all away and replace it with Built Bars. So when you're craving a snack, you got a nice treat that's healthy for you, and it still tastes incredible. Even if you are not a huge fan of working out, you can at least eat something that tastes good and is good for you. That way, when you're going to enjoy this delicious Built Bar, and you can always count on it, even if you don't work out. So there's so many flavors to choose from: coconut almond, peanut butter brownie, raspberry cookies and cream, salted caramel, which is one of my favorites for sure, mint brownie, and many more. In fact, Built Bar, they're coming out with new flavors all the time, sometimes limited time flavors. So don't miss out on those. Check it out at built.com, and check often. The offer is go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, guys, let's talk about some individual matchups. All right, is there anything, especially let's start with the offensive line. You got big versus big. You got Evan Neal going up against just this tremendous pass rush, a pass rush from Georgia that was not able to get to Bryce Young. So what are you looking forward to seeing maybe Georgia do different, Rob?
Well, for me, I want to see Trayvon Walker, live up to all of that athletic potential. He is a guy that, you see some clips of him that just suggest this is a guy that should go in the first round. But the fact that he hasn't had more than 2 tackles since early November in any single game and was limited to 2 tackles, no sacks against Evan Neal, to me, despite the fact they had a lot of one-on-one matchups, I think that, in yesterday's show, guys, I use a Janet Jackson line. What have you done for me lately? I'll use a Snoop Dogg line here, who's you? Use a flea. I'm the big dog, and I'm not even going to go with the rest of that lyric, just because our show might be a little bit too PG. But that's the thing. I mean, Evan Neal just basically just kind of flicked Travon Walker off to the side and was not nearly as effective as I was kind of thinking. So to me, that is one of those one-on-one matchups. I think we certainly can talk about linebackers and the running backs, the receivers and the cornerbacks, but I'll leave you guys to talk about those. But to me, that is one of the ways that Georgia has to be more productive. Their pass rush, their defensive line has to be able to get a few hits on Bryce Young. Otherwise, this is going to just be a repeat of the SEC championship game and a big win for Alabama.
I agree,
Ryan,
I think Walker might be the guy that can get the biggest boost out of this game if he is able to live up to that. I'd like to see them run a few more games and twists with him. I'd like to see them move him around a little bit. Right tackles for Alabama struggled more than I thought a couple weeks ago. So let's see if he can take advantage of that. I agree with you. You want to see the production. I think he's got the upside, but he and one player in the back of Georgia's defense, I think, have the opportunity to do something for themselves in this ballgame.
Ryan, I wanted to ask you a little bit about Jordan Davis, because this was a guy that really had little to no impact in that game. And there are clips floating around of him just getting kind of stood up, and he looked gassed. He looked tired. He wasn't getting any type of penetration. We watched him last week against Michigan. He was blowing up plays in the backfield, getting back there. He chased down a running back from the backside. That was extremely impressive. Do you see maybe Georgia doing something different to either free him up, some stunts, different things to get him kind of moving to where he's a little bit more productive and can affect his game in a more positive way?
I absolutely do. And it all goes in with Walker as well. Like, move your front around. They're better athletes than they appear. Let them do it. I think I kind of buy into that concept. Maybe they didn't go all out in that SEC championship game. Maybe they got a few tricks still up their sleeve. I think that might be one of them. And I'll tell you this as well. I hope that they've been running some gassers too, because I think it's out of the bag now. You want to run tempo against his front and see what you can do to slow him down and stand him up. You're absolutely right. So be prepared for that. And I think that you're going to see a more aggressive and I think probably a better prepared Georgia front this time around.
And let me jump in with one other kind of comment. Having reviewed that the SEC championship game again, I was surprised. And this is something that Georgia's done all year long. And normally, from an evaluation standpoint, I love to see superstars playing on special teams. But the fact that Jordan Davis is playing on special teams, Devontae Wyatt, an underrated, really good football player, defensive tackle for Georgia, gets overshadowed so much by Jordan Davis, but is a better pass rusher. Frankly, the fact that both of them were playing as much special teams as they did, hey, that's great. But you're going against Alabama for the, previously the SEC championship, now the national championship. Maybe put in one of those other 4 or 5 star recruits to play a little bit of special teams and reserve those big guys. Allow them to play their best football on defense rather than, going off of punt returns and things like that. And I just don't think that you need 330-pound plus guys. In the case of Davis, 360-pound plus guys, moving all around the field. That's how they do get gassed.
You have Darion Kendrick's cornerback for University of Georgia, and he's just coming off of a 2-interception performance against Michigan. Do you see Kendricks maybe having that same type of success against Alabama? Because that's a guy, he was at Clemson, and you thought that was a good, situation for him. For whatever reason, he ended up transferred to Georgia, and he's starting. It hasn't been all great for him, and now he has to go up against a big dog again, a guy that torched him last week. And, we talked about Jameson Williams' performance, but Mechie, who, he's not playing this game, he had almost 100 yards as well. So it seemed like nobody had any level of success against the Alabama receivers. Do you think that that's a matchup right there that can really kind of blow this game wide open and be, at an advantage for Alabama, who somehow Alabama's the underdogs going into this game?
Yeah, I think that's a critical matchup. I have a hard time believing that Kendrick, as good of a player as he is, that he is going to be able to get 2 interceptions off of Bryce Young, because it seems like nobody can get interceptions off of Bryce Young. I mean, it's so simplified to say, oh, the quarterback is better for Alabama, therefore they win. And yet that was absolutely part of the case. And that's with all due respect to Stetson Bennett. He made some great throws against Alabama. But at the same time, I mean, Bryce Young was absolutely spectacular. And so I think if Kendrick is able to slow down Jameson Williams and makes Alabama a little bit more one-dimensional, then yeah, that's the recipe for success. But in terms of being able to duplicate the interception total he had against Michigan and their passing attack against Alabama, and obviously the Heisman Trophy winner, again, arguably the number one receiver in the 2022 draft class, I think it's kind of one of those things where you just want to contain him. You're not going to even dream of being able to completely stop them.
Oh, I was going to jump you there. I'm sorry. I do want to say one thing about stopping Jamison. I think Sign's got to be the guy that's even more involved, because you saw Jamison get behind that defense a couple times in their last meeting. And I think that was a miscalculation that they surely will be able to adjust to. I expect that to prove to be an opportunity now that Mechie's not on the field for them. So can you not only take away these deep chunk plays, but are you going to find yourself an opportunity to take the ball away? I think that's what it comes down to. And I think Alabama's going to counter by doing some other nifty things with Jamison. We know he can play special teams. They got him on a jet sweep. They've done a couple of shorter kind of drag type concepts that I think work for him, so that he's able to accelerate out of that coverage. And that's going to be the key for how you slow down what is the ultimate weapon for Alabama's offense.
Right. Now, when we come back for this last segment, we're going to get to some of the keys to victory, some key prospects that we're looking forward to just seeing how to perform on this big stage, and give our predictions for the outcome of this game. But first, we want to talk to you guys a little bit about BetOnline. And, we're talking about predictions. We got Alabama, the 3-point underdogs. I don't know if Nick Saban is the guy that I bet against. So if you're thinking about betting with him and taking the points that they're giving you, BetOnline is the place for you to do it. And, it remains the number one spot for all sports wagering action for 2022. New year and new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code Locked On to get started. From football, basketball, college football playoffs, hockey, boxing, and UFC, right down to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of these amazing offers available for you throughout the 2022 year. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. That's BetOnline, where the games start. All right, guys, we're talking about game starting. We're talking about this big matchup. Now, I want to ask you each, the one prospect, Rob, one prospect that you are just looking to see how he performs, and maybe he can help himself heading into the 2022 draft.
Well, to me, it's still Pickens, the wide receiver for Georgia. The fact that Alabama only got 2 catches out of him in that first game, Ryan's been kind of saying that he suspects that maybe Georgia didn't play completely all out, maybe save something, anticipating that there might be a rematch here in the national championship game. That remains to be seen. But I did think that it was surprising that Pickens did not get more opportunities, considering the fact that I don't think this is quite as talented of an Alabama secondary as we've seen in the past. You pigeonholed me only saying the one guy. I was also surprised that Zamir White, been the primary ball carrier for Georgia, did not get nearly as many opportunities as James Cook did in that first matchup. So to me, that suggests to me that Georgia is looking to use their primary ball carriers, their upperclassmen at least, because again, Bowers is absolutely spectacular. But I think that you're going to see those upperclassmen ball carriers get a little bit more opportunity to shine in the national championship stage.
I like where you're going there. And Toto and Harris, I think, are going to have something to say about that. But I think that concept of playing that down and getting that out there, I think that is part of the formula for Georgia. And I'm going to go that if they can establish that a little bit and press those 2 inside linebackers to really have to perform, and if you can get the 10-gallon version of Stetson rather than the 2-gallon, I think you might have a shot with Pickens there, and that may be the turning of the tide.
I can't believe we went, this whole show, and I know this guy's not a draft prospect, but I have to mention Will Anderson because he's so dominant. He's possibly one of the best prospects in this entire game. We haven't mentioned him for reasons because, again, he's not coming out. But we mentioned Bryce Young, so I'm like, okay, I got to throw Will Anderson in there because he's a complete game record, and he's going to be part of my prediction as far as the game goes. But the guy that I kind of want to, shine a little light on, you guys know I like my secondary guys, but Jordan Battle, this is a guy who, we'll see if he elects to go to the NFL draft, but he has the ability, he has the size, he has the athleticism, he has some nastiness. I remember watching him. I don't even think I was watching him. I think I was watching Patrick Surtain on film, and he just kept flashing with just his ability to make open field tackles, his ability to make plays in space. So I'm looking to see what he does in this game that stands out to maybe change the dynamics of this game and flip the tide in favor of Alabama. Like how I did that.
Yeah, I do. I like that. And yeah, that's the thing is that with Battle in particular, I mean, he had the pick 6 in the SEC championship game. So, to me, he is one of those guys, especially the way that Georgia focused so much on the tight ends, this past game in the SEC championship game. I mean, obviously Bowers was spectacular. The fact that he had 10 receptions, nobody else, at least among the receivers and tight ends, had more than 2. To me, to be that one-dimensional, I think just kind of played into Alabama's hands. So again, all the more reason why I would expect to see Stetson Bennett move the ball around a little bit because Jordan Battle is absolutely a playmaker. In my opinion, the best of Alabama's secondary at this point. So you have to try and focus the ball somewhere else rather than going right into his wheelhouse.
Real quick, Rob, and I don't know why this slipped my mind, but you talked about the receiver Pickens. And first of all, I did not know that was Carl Pickens' son. I don't know how that slipped my mind, but you have George Pickens and you talked about his just lack of targets and he had 2 catches. That's the most he's had in the game this year. I know he hasn't played much and he kind of came on a little late. Why do you think they haven't looked to get him more involved? He just came off a playoff game last week where he had 1 reception for 9 yards. You talked about 2 against Alabama. Are they going to look to try to get him a little bit more involved in this game? And does Stetson Bennett kind of need him to really perform at a high level for them to be able to have a chance at this and not let the game get away like they did last time?
I think they do. Of course, I believe it was an ACL, that he tore prior to the season. So, he's basically been out all year long. But he has a track record of being absolutely spectacular in playoff games. In bowl games, I should say, over the last couple of years. Was the MVP a couple of years ago in their bowl game. I think that this is an example of Georgia is just kind of playing possum a little bit, and possibly being able to take full advantage of his skill set. The head coach's name is Kirby Smart. I don't want to say that he'd be Kirby dumb if he didn't take full advantage of what a dynamic talent that this young man is. But at his height, his straight line speed, the fact that you have a solid quarterback, and look, all due respect to Stetson Bennett. Again, he made some unbelievable throws against Alabama the last time, but he's going to have to make more of them if they're going to win. It's just so much easier to do if you put the ball in the hands of your playmakers. So to me, Pickens, Zamir White, and certainly Bowers, yet again, to me, those are the 3 guys who have to absolutely carry the load rather than putting it all on Stetson Bennett's shoulders.
And they're probably going to have to try to lean on Cook as well and, to get things going. But I want to go to you first, Ryan. Keys to victory. Who are you taking and why?
Oh, it's good that you did that because I was just about to jump in there again. For me, a guy that can make a better name for himself and is one of the keys. You mentioned it about Will Anderson. We hadn't brought him up. One of the reasons is because Jamar Sawyer is the guy who played him last time. And in that contest where Anderson produced 12 pressures, he got 1 against Sawyer. It was a sack. I'll give him credit for that. The finish was there. But I think that's a key matchup that not only is going to help turn the tide for Bennett and the offense, but in particular for the stock of Sawyer.
I would 100%. I 100%. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're going to make a prediction. I apologize.
Oh, I'm not very good at that. So I'll just take, I'll take dogs by 3. How's that?
All right.
I hear you. For me, and I love the fact that you mentioned Jamar Sawyer. To me, I thought that he really did help his stock in the SEC championship game. Will Anderson is a spectacular player. Thank you, Eric, for mentioning him in the first place, and Ryan for kind of expounding on that, because we would be absolutely remiss if we didn't talk about him. But Sawyer, I thought, did a fantastic job. The one sack that you mentioned, Ryan. I mean, that was a pretty difficult play. I mean, they were off on the left. Well, it doesn't. I mean, they were off to the side there, and because of that, it kind of gave a very difficult angle for Sawyer to be able to make that block, and Bennett, frankly, held the ball too long, and so because of that fact, I thought that it really showed how well that Sawyer had been able to slow down Anderson throughout that football game. So to me, that's a significant one. One that I wanted to make sure that I highlight here for Georgia is I want to see more from Nakobe Dean. I want to see more from Jordan Davis. Those to me are the two guys that keep getting talked about as first round picks. And, and sometimes I watch these guys and I think, okay, there are all kinds of traits here, but did they actually make the plays to win football games? And, if you're especially with Nakobe Dean, who I think is a spectacular player, is going to go in the first round, the Butkus Award winner, but I want to see if he's able to do it again. I do expect Alabama to try to run the football a little bit more in this game because, as we talked about before, they don't have John Mechie. I don't expect Bryce Young to be able to be quite as effective and make this into basically a track meet. So Nakobe Dean, you can't have 5 tackles in that game, the way that he did this past game. So I expect the Butkus Award winner to lead the team in tackles. If it's the safety Scene who is leading the Georgia Bulldogs in tackles, they're going to lose the football game. I can't believe I'm saying this, going with Ryan, who already said that he's not so good at predicting games and betting against Nick Saban, the greatest head coach in college football history in terms of the number of rings that he has. But I agree with you. I think the Georgia Bulldogs figure out a way of winning this football game. I will throw out a score there. I'm going to say 27-24. Go Dogs.
One more thing on Dean, too. I'll tell you this. You put on the first couple of drives of that first SEC game, the championship game, and you see, and I love the volume with which they like to blitz Dean. It's one of my favorite aspects of him. He attacks the hole well. The problem was against Alabama the first time. He didn't make any penetration. He got stood up by those guards, and I need to see him be more productive, even if you have to slip those blocks. If he does that, I think that makes the difference.
We'll see if that makes a difference. You got Alabama. They didn't run the ball with a whole lot of success. I think this time, man, they're going to have a little bit more success running the ball. And if they do that, we clearly see what they could do through the air. I remember last time, and I just had a hard time thinking that there's somehow, some way, Stetson Bennett is going to outplay Bryce Young. And I have that same mindset again. I'm taking Alabama. I think Alabama wins by 10 points. I know they're 3-point underdogs. I'm betting on this game, and I'm definitely taking Bama and the money line. So I'm going big. Let's go, Bama. And the crazy thing is I like going for like the underdog. So regardless of if Alabama's in the game, Georgia's still the underdog to most people. And I would like to see them win, but my money going big on Alabama to win, and not just win again. I said like win by 10 points. That's going to do it for this episode, man. You guys, let us know how you're feeling about this national championship game. Tweet us, message us, whatever you have to do. Where are you watching the game? I'll be watching it live from California. Not live in person, but just live on TV. So that's going to do it from Rob, from Ryan. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Leave your reviews, hit the like button, subscribe to YouTube channel. But until next time, we will see y'all. We are out. Peace.